Great. I will call our meeting to order. Since not all commissioners are present in the room, Mary, can you call a roll call?
President Gass.
Here.
Vice President Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Castellini.
Here.
Commissioner Linder.
Here.
Commissioner Norton. Here.
Great. And for those watching, all the commissioners have been vaccinated, so we are without masks this morning, but we are still distancing ourselves. We have, first of all, a few agenda changes that I wanted to mention. We've been asked to change the order a little bit just to accommodate some very legitimate issues. We will go into executive session at 11 a.m. So depending on where we are in our meeting, we will go because we have some legal and professional reps that will be joining us at 11 a.m. So we will do that. We're going to move staff comments after presentations A and B. So we'll move up and we'll go through this slowly so you can adjust your packets, but we'll move the staff comments up to accommodate, and then approvals C and D, we're going to move down to the end of new business. And then we're going to move the Clifton Dog Park discussion up following the deer management program. Are there any other suggested additions or changes to the agenda before we get started? Okay, hearing none. I first of all want to acknowledge the public comments that we have received. We are still doing this meeting without the public in attendance. We will be shifting that in the next couple months as the city opens up all of its public buildings. But I do want to acknowledge today several comments that have been received, each of which will be incorporated into our meeting minutes. But we have received correspondences that have been previously circulated to all the commissioners from the Cincinnati Urban Deer Advocates, excuse me. We've received several correspondences pertaining to needs at the Miles Edwards Park in West Price Hill. We have received correspondence expressing concern about unsafe and potentially illegal activity in our Mount Echo Park. We've received several correspondences pertaining to our agenda item today on the Clifton Dog Park. And we've also received several correspondences pertaining to the planned demolition of the shelter in the Owl's Nest Park. So each of those things have been circulated to all the commissioners and will be part of the public records. Since we have one of our commissioners participating electronically by Zoom, we will have to do today all of our votes by roll call. So all of that put behind us, we'll move first to our agenda item for our minutes from our last meeting on May 20, 2021. Are there any additions, changes, or corrections to those minutes?
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
I submitted one that I was asking Mary to check, and it's at the bottom of page 2. The last paragraph, and I think there may be an attribution error. Just wanted to check it.
Yes, I confirmed you were correct. It was, yeah, you were the one that said it. So
Okay.
I'll make that correction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other changes or corrections? If not, do I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So
Okay, and second. Thank you. Mary, can you do a roll call, please?
President Getz.
Yes.
Vice President Thomas.
yes.
Commissioner Castellini.
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner North? Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on now to presentation concerning a pickleball court at Sawyer Point. So, Kara?
Thank you. I will just quickly pass this along to Mr. Sheckman, who is going to introduce our presenter today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Staff has been working with pickleball enthusiasts on a project to repurpose the tennis courts at Sawyer Point, and some of that is actually in progress now. Gary Lesses has been leading the charge on that. He's raised some funding already, and it's been in conversations with the Parks Foundation about raising more money. And Gary has a presentation that he'd like to do in front of the board right now. So Gary,
Thank you.
you're up.
Welcome. Thank you. Very nice to be here. There we are.
Hi, my name is Gary Lesses, and I founded Pickleball at Sawyer Point. Thank you for allowing me to present to you today. Pickleball is easy to learn. It is very social. We have 10 group play sessions each week where people can come, join in, and leave anytime they like during the session. The equipment is inexpensive to purchase, and I think I shared with you a sample of what the equipment is. The sport is truly multi-generational. We have players ranging in age from 8 to 89. Our head instructor, Sharon Kiefer, just celebrated her 89th birthday in March. In 2010, the average age of a pickleball player was 71 years old. In 2020, the average age has dropped to 53, and that trend has continued. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America and the world. It has grown 38% in the last 5 years, 23% in the last 3 years. Sadly, Cincinnati is a bit behind. Middletown has self-proclaimed themselves as the pickleball capital of Ohio. They have had a 13-year head start on us, but I'm confident with our collective vision, we can catch up quickly. Our very first pickleball session at Sawyer Point was held May 18th of last year, and it was an immediate success. This led us to a phase 2 expansion. We needed to raise $6,000 to purchase 4 more nets. We raised over $8,100 in 18 hours from 60 pickleball players. 87% of those donors were first-time donors to the Cincinnati Parks Foundation. Volunteers painted the lines, and the additional 4 courts were assembled. The volunteers also assembled the new nets. The 8 courts were a great starting point. This chart shows the participation last year. The blue line shows the attendance at each one of the 246 sessions. The black line shows the court capacity, and the red line shows the year-to-date average. You can see that the numbers are quite astounding. But besides the court capacity, the courts badly need to be resurfaced. This chart shows the participation in this year from March 17th to June 8th. We are averaging 24% more players than the court capacity. Our community continues to grow. We now have more than 1,200 pickleball at Sawyer Point face group members. On June 4th, Cincinnati Parks hosted an amped up concert at the Schott Amphitheater adjacent to the Sawyer Point courts. We had 84 people playing pickleball, waiting up to 45 minutes to play a game. Parks approved 4 more courts to be used for special events and Monday through Friday mornings when there are no tennis players to be found. We raised $20,000 in 2 days from 9 donors to pay for 4 additional nets, replace the speaker system, and purchase a ball machine. The fundraiser was executed quietly to not take away from any future fundraising campaigns. The vision is to make Sawyer Point a world-class pickleball facility. This includes resurfacing the entire court surface and putting in 12 dedicated pickleball courts on the area that is currently hosting 4 tennis courts. 4 tennis courts remain with the pickleball courts overlaid on them to be used for tournaments. Additional gates to minimize game interruptions, and replace the ancient metal halide lights with instant on energy saving LED lights. Then we will have a facility that we can be proud of and can host regional and professional tournaments. And there's more. Besides the health and enjoyment benefit to thousands of Cincinnatians, besides the economic impact of hundreds of people playing pickleball weekly and reinvigorating Sawyer Point, we estimate pickleball at Sawyer Point can generate $500,000 annually in economic impact when the renovation is completed through tournaments, clinics, and special events. The sport of pickleball is on fire, and the support of the Cincinnati pickleball community has been amazing. The courts are in bad shape, but with the help of the pickleball community, Cincinnati City Parks, and the Cincinnati Parks Foundation, we can get this done. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer your questions.
I have a few questions. So all the tennis courts at Sawyer Point are now have pickleball.
Well, if we go back to this chart,
Your proposal is.
the proposal is there would still be 4 tennis courts, but there would be overlaid so that for tournaments and special events, we could have 20 courts, but those 4 tennis courts will still continue to be tennis courts.
What is the tennis activity?
Not much. That's how this all came about. I started playing pickleball. I live right across the street from the courts. I started playing pickleball 2 years ago. And I walked my dog around the park, and I noticed how nobody plays anything down there at Sawyer Point. I started playing pickleball and thought, what we need to utilize these very valuable, great assets that are fallow right now. So we do get some tennis participation in the evenings, never in the mornings. And on the weekends there is some, but it's not much.
Lou, can you help us with the?
I can. I'm the regional manager for the parks. So we've had no negative feedback on what we've done so far, and we've been keeping pretty good track of the use of the facility in terms of tennis. We think that sweet spot is for 4 remaining tennis courts, but also to have that flexibility that the lines being painted on them to allow for overflow. Pickleball is Gary stated. And that would be the norm in many facilities that are native courts that have dual function. So I think we basically keep the best aspects of both worlds. Clearly, pickleball is rejuvenated a section of Sawyer Point that was definitely underutilized.
That's great. I know pickleball enthusiasts is a
We're excited.
lightweight to find pickleball people.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest reasons why people don't play on tennis courts is because of poor condition. So we're saying that part of this proposal plans that these courts will be resurfaced or repaired, resurfaced. 4 of them or the whole
The whole
thing.
Because the cracks obviously impact the pickleball.
That would include new tennis nets, new pickleball nets.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about is that currently there are all the tennis nets and benches there. Those are all going to be removed, and these portable nets that are now commonplace are used. When I say portable, they're very large, very heavy, but they don't penetrate into the court surface. One of the reasons we want to try to prevent future damage from water penetrating the court surface, which then freezes and cracks the courts. So tennis nets, pickleball nets, they will all be portable nets of courts.
And so, again, just to expound on what Gary said, that, these portable nets allow for quick transitions from from pickleball back into tennis or vice versa.
Thank you, Lou.
So the source of funding is to be determined with this project.
Yeah, the intention of bringing Gary to us today is just to take your temperature on this project, to see should funding become available, would the commissioners be supportive? This project would obviously come back in front of you once funding was created, but this would give, to have your input shared publicly would certainly give the community who is fundraising some confidence to go out there and try and secure those funds.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very informative. And it sounds like this is like the new in sport. I hear about it everywhere. And the engagement of the pickleball community in making this, the funding available, the fundraising, all of that I think is really great. The fact that this area is being reactivated, I think is absolutely great. The thing that I want to make sure we balance is the whole, how many tennis courts do we need and how do we make that fair for everyone? Because I'm wondering if maybe the reason people aren't playing on those courts is because they're in that condition. So I think this conversation will make people aware of this potential. So if there are people who really would like to play tennis down there, but for whatever reason are not, then we can hear from the other side as well. So where we end up is a good place for tennis players and pickleball players. So I think it's right to continue the exploration of the idea. And I think so far it looks really good.
I like the fact that you get 48 people playing in the space of 8 tennis players. Seems like pickleball is the new cornhole. So, I'm all for it. It's a great idea.
I'll echo that as well. I think what I like about the concept is that we can turn this into somewhat of a world-class facility. If we're going to have facilities in our parks, I'd like to have them up to the best condition possible. I do share Commissioner Thomas's concern and would ask staff to make sure that we are informed if the tennis community feels infringed upon. But I do believe that this is a great way to make that site somewhat of a regional draw to Cincinnati. And even as we were talking earlier, as we're looking at Mount Airy to become a regional draw for mountain biking and other activities, if this is another opportunity to make Cincinnati Parks a regional draw for an activity like pickleball, I think it's great. So I appreciate the time and energy your group has put in. I've heard in the community from friends, the number of people that are down there early in the morning, mid-afternoon. So I appreciate the work that you're doing. And for me, I am very supportive. Commissioner Castellini, do you want to input anything?
Yes, thank you. I'm curious, do we have any idea what the total cost would be? I see that on the budget, there's money allocated, but do we have any idea what the total cost would be?
Let me start to respond to that. Maybe Gary could add in. We are still putting together costs. In fact, because we are concerned about the cracking that's been evident in the courts, we're doing some borings to test the subsurface. We believe that it's probably to start with around $250,000. And that in fact is what's in the manager's proposed budget right now.
Thank you. So I think if my understanding is correct, it's what we're being asked today is to get direction from the board to continue evaluating this project. And as Steve said, there is $250,000 proposed in the city's capital budget that will be addressed by the end of the month. And so I think at this point, the next step would be to come back with a little bit more information. But this would allow staff to move forward to do that type of evaluation, Susie, of how much money we're talking about.
Got it. Thank you.
Steve, I've got a question. Is this the first time? Are these in the original condition, or have they been resurfaced since they were put in?
Well, they were put in 1988. give or take, when Bicentennial Commons Sawyer Point was built. They transitioned, the property transitioned to the park board in 2011. I don't know if they were resurfaced prior to 2011. They have not been since they've been under parks. But of course, we have been concerned about resurfacing them even before the pickleball idea emerged, and which is why we're investigating the subsurface.
Thank you. Any other comments, commissioners? I believe there's a consensus that this is a project we do want to move forward with and evaluate. So again, I appreciate your time, and I think we would all give you a nod that 4 thumbs up. Let's pursue this.
Thank you.
Yes.
To be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Director Kish, you want to introduce who this gentleman is in front of us?
It would be my pleasure. So today we are joined by our regional manager, Mr. Lou San, who is currently our regional manager of our Riverfront Downtown Parks. And I've asked Lou to come here today to speak with you specifically about one aspect of his job, and that is the special events on the waterfront in our parks. Thank you, Lou.
Thanks, Kara. So again, better wait for the slide so I remember. So anyway, again, my name's Lou Sand, and I'm the regional manager for the Riverfront, downtown, and special events. That's what we're going to be focused on somewhat today, to talk about our community program. This is a program that's funded through basically 3 endowment lines: AMP, Grossbeck, and a new one, Schmidt line. So here's some of the goals of the program. Top among them is to build strong community-based partnerships, primarily with our own advisory councils. And in some cases, it may be community councils or business associations. I'll let you go ahead and read through some of the other goals of the program. You'll notice the last one, again, our focus of this program is that the nuts and bolts of it is to improve our neighborhoods through our park system. Simple mission statement for the program, basically in partnership, and that's very key. We always try to find a partner to partner with as we put these programs on. And we're providing, of course, a friendly program, and we try to spread it throughout our system. Bottom lines: enjoyment, enlightenment, enrichment, and improving our neighborhoods. And this can actually apply to some of the other lines as well. These are the aspects of support that we can provide to our community-based partners. Obviously, seed money through the fund lines to pay for the bands or musical acts. Event production support. This is in the area of planning or securing vendors and stuff for these events. Staff support, either from the regions or from the Riverfront region, to provide basic tasks such as litter pickup, setting up perimeters for if alcohol is involved in the event, which it sometimes is. Use of the venue, of the park venue, of course, and there are also additional support capabilities that we can provide. We have pretty much a fully functioning audio team out of the Riverfront, and we can project those assets out to our neighborhood parks to provide a PA system. We do have a system out at the waterfront to do outdoor movies, a projection screen, things of that nature as well. We also have a wide range of outdoor games, cornhole boards, but other things, giant Jenga, things that we get, and content to our events. So let's get down to the brass tacks, and unfortunately, I had to go back to 2019 because of the event apocalypse to kind of give you an idea of what we have done in years past. This slide reflects Stanberry Park. 2019 was the 4th year of the program. They did a Friday night fun, which was the first Friday of every month, May through October. That gives you a reflection of some of the bands that were selected for the events. They also did 3 movie nights. They also had 2 theater nights with Shakespeare and Bandcamp. You'll notice the community partners that we partnered with there at the top bullet. Kennedy Heights, this is a very long running program. It was actually 2019 was its 7th year. There's a wide variety of community partners. The name of that series was Play in the Park. It was every Wednesday, 2 of which were music events that we helped fund through our AMP fund line. And they also had one enhanced event that added some additional activities and had alcohol added. That was July event. Moving on to the next part here. Can you advance it here? I have a problem.
It might just be the screen lagging.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Olden View, this is, now we gotta
Yeah,
go
just give it
back.
1 second.
There, okay. Now we're back on track, sorry. So, Olden View, this is a small park in Price Hill. It was its 4th year in 2019. We had 4 music events. We also did 3 in the park after dark. Movie nights, you can see there were, again, a wide range of community partners that help support this. Rapid Run, they did a music series as well as a canoe movie night. They had 2 of those events, which we supported with our AV and music screen. So, and the foundation also supported the canoe movie nights through their grant system to the advisory council. There was an Explore Nature component to the canoe movie nights. Mount Echo, they decided to do just 1 big event. And in conjunction with the Riverfest downtown, we created an event called Riverfest West. As you probably know, Mount Echo is an excellent vantage point to view the fireworks downtown. So we capitalized on that. Added a band and some other family-friendly activities there at the park. They did an all-day event, and it was very, very successful. We partnered with the foundation. CRC actually was a partner for that event. There's an Explore Nature component as well. Food trucks were also added to the event. And again, it was very successful. Old Park, as you know, APAC has had a long-standing history of providing events for Old Park. But 2019 was our 2nd year of supporting it to a broader extent. They have 4 music festivals every year and 4 tasting events that are outlined there. And they also host a major 4th of July celebration. In 2019, and just to take a little bit of a step back, these programs through the AMP Fund basically started in 2015. So in 2019, we were able to add some new initiatives in some other parks, and they're outlined here. In Pyatt, we, in partnership with 3CBC, we did Tuesday and Thursday acoustic lunches. In Laurel, we helped support S-Fest, and in Alms, they did the Alms Park Advisory Council, in conjunction with the Columbia Custom Community Council, did a spring concert and a family-oriented picnic, which turned out to be very successful. Did a couple things with Mount Airy and Westwood Town Hall. I can feel Rocky in the back saying, where we at? So we'll move right along. I separated Groesbeck out and what it does with Burnett Woods. The Groesbeck Fund line is specifically dedicated to that park. This is the slide for 2019. We did a number of things, primarily Wednesday in the Woods in partnership with the Cincinnati Cultural Arts Center, but we did a couple of events with Preserve Burnett Woods, and we also supported Spring Fest through the Groesbeck Fund. we will briefly, very briefly, talk about 2020. That, of course, was the year of the event apocalypse. It's basically nothing happened, although we actually were able to do a couple of things. You know, obviously, we adhered to all protocols that were in place, including social distancing and masking and stuff. But the two items we were able to do were the Pavilion Park acoustic lunches. We did a few CCO pop-ups. They did one at Season Good, at Snail and the Kiss Leaning Esplanade, and they also did one at Now let's talk about 2021 and what we plan on doing for this year, and much of it is started already. I like to term this rising from the pandemic like it beats. So Stanberry Park, they're back up and running. Of course, some of us were, there at the June Pavilion dedication, which went very well. We helped fund the opening act for that ceremony through AMP. They have a full slate of Friday night fun events planned, and there are 2 theater nights also. Kennedy Heights, they had told me earlier in the year that they were again going to cancel for this year. They changed their mind in early June, so we rapidly got up to speed with them and agreed to help fund some of their music events. They're going to have 4 events, 2 of which will have 3 will have music. So those will be in July and August. Golden View up and running again. 2 movie nights and 4 music events. The first one will be not this Saturday, but next Saturday. Rapid Run, they're only going to do one event, and it's going to be a canoe movie night with a concert, kind of a triple feature. The foundation will help support that, and it'll have an Explore Nature. Mount Echo Riverfest West will again take place. So that'll be the Sunday before Labor Day. We're excited about it. Today I have a planning meeting with the Mount Echo Advisory Council at 1 o'clock. All Park is up and running. They had to cancel their spring events, but their first event will be today. Their first summer music festival. And these are just tremendous events. I encourage everyone to take the opportunity to participate in that. The decision was made very recently to, again, that it was, the conditions were right to again host the 4th of July celebration this year, which is very fortunate because that's been running for over 50 years. So, Pyatt, we're going to go ahead with the acoustic lunches again. Support Esfest. Alms that had done the spring concert in 2019 will move their event to the fall, and it will likely be in the beginning of October. And we'll be working with groups at Westwood to support second Saturdays, much as we did in 2019. Rosebeck and Burnett Woods up and running. Wednesday in the Woods. They had their 3rd event of the season yesterday. So we're running with the ball. Questions?
Lou, I will add, if you and your team are absolutely spectacular, but one of the things you didn't touch on that I would love for you to share with the commissioners, it's not just the contributions from the restricted funds, and it's not just your facilitation of the partnerships, but your team is the entity that if a community has an idea, they come to you and you help produce it. Can you share some of the things that your team does specifically to help bring a community from an idea to an actual event? Permitting and all of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly the permitting, and I mean, for our advisory councils, we've come up with a streamlined process through a simple partnership agreement. But clearly, we can help facilitate them. We mentioned in terms of, if they wanted to add alcohol for a particular event,
we will assist them to go through the permitting process through the state to get that to to negotiate any type of city bureaucracy that they may have to go through to hold an event. So, again, we do inform our advisory councils frequently, that we are out there disposed if they have an idea. And we have meetings, whatever it takes, site visits, planning meetings. So I just mentioned just a few minutes ago, my team is meeting with the Mount Echo Advisory Council. There will be a representative from CRC, Price Hill will, and we nug this thing through, kind of hand in hand. The first year we did Riverfest West, we were meeting monthly. Now that we've kind of got the handle, the template established, then now we can go through these things a little bit quicker. Then my instinct is then find another partner, expand the program into another part. So we are definitely on offense.
Super.
Thank you.
Great. Any questions,
I
comments?
have a question. I'm sorry, I always have a question.
That's why you're here.
I hope it's not another.
Uh-oh.
No, so when Crystal comes up, I'm going to tell her the most important thing we can do at the parks is trails and training. But while you're here, I'm going to say the most important thing that we can do is create places for our communities. I mean, every time we host a gathering in a park, people that have never been to that park, this place is amazing. And that's what connects people to the places that we live. And it's what connects people to the community that in turn has us often being contributing residents. This is critically important. So the more we can do this, the better, in my opinion.
Well, you found the right guy.
Good. That was my question. That was my setup. So like, how important I believe this is. Are we making this available to communities that want it? So if someone wants to come in and set up their farmer's market, is it accessible? Are the fees associated with doing this kind of stuff in our parks accessible in a way that we can support communities who want to bring people into the parks?
Absolutely. We have, like the partnership vehicle or route, which is primarily used by our advisory council, but we also have a fee waiver system as well. And I think the keys for both of those types of approaches are, is it free and open to the public? And there's a lot of stuff is, and we definitely encourage that. And we certainly want to activate all of our spaces. But even for those events, that may be a little bit different, that are in charge of a little bit or whatever, I feel that our fee structure, if they go through the regular permitting process, is very reasonable, certainly consistent with other park systems.
Are there other neighborhoods in the city that you can see us maybe encouraging more community activism? Price Hill Low was on a lot of this, and that's exciting because they have a lot of great parks.
Right.
Are there other neighborhoods in the
There are definitely ones that, that I would like to, target more intensively. Part of the secret is to find, those viable partners, that help us through, through the process and get linked with. So, but certainly Avondale is an area that I would like to put more emphasis on. We have Martin Luther King Park there. And Season Goods actually, they have shared with communities. We did have something going in North Avondale with Nana, but there was some change in the leadership with Nana, and they stopped doing that. But I mean, that's something I would like to approach again. I think Plush Gardens is a certainly, and I've had some discussions a couple of years ago before the pandemic with the Avondale Community Council about trying to do more stuff in Plush Gardens. I'd like to see more activity at Laurel, the West End. Certainly, that could be a community hub. Hopefully, maybe FC Cincinnati and the establishment of that stadium, and then working with the West End
we can establish some programs in as well. But we will take every opportunity to try and we get some stuff started in some of these underserved communities.
More like what you're thinking. That's engaging potentially more neighborhoods where our residents actually.
Mr. President, I have a question and comment. And I'm so glad that you
I'm
mentioned,
deaf, that's why.
I'm glad you mentioned, following the question about the underserved parks in the city. I was just in an Avondale Community Council meeting this week, and there was a discussion about Martin Luther King Park and the challenges that we were facing with that park. And so what I wanted to understand more clearly is, what is the right first step? I know that there committees in various communities that support the parks, but I don't know that those exist in some of our underserved communities. So what is the right way for those communities to start to engage so they can get to the point where they can come to us and discuss ideas about how to activate, how to make these parks safer? Because I think that's one of the things that contributes to decrease in negative activity in the park, is for these parks to be activated and have programming. So how do we start to do that? How do we engage with the community? What is the right first step?
Well, I guess what I would say, and you're right, many of these community councils do have a subcommittee in them that deals that's supposed to be a liaison with the Parks and Recreation bureaucracy in the city. So some of them may not have those subcommittees, but for any member, of that community council to really reach out to my team, and we can perhaps maybe send out some type of email out to these community councils that if they are interested in their communities, maybe that would spark them to reach out to us. But just reach out to our team, and then we'll determine at what stage they are. And that really determines at what levels of support that we need to step in. They're all going to need a little bit of money. So, we can help out with that. But what do they need in terms of that production support component? It may be intensive in that first year. And I see part of this program is also mentorship, kind of thing, and, to develop either the advisory councils or in some cases a community council. Again, at first we may have to intensively help them, but then hopefully they can, be more self-sufficient as time goes by.
Great.
And that's what we're seeing, in our other programs.
Great, thank you.
So it sounds like community council is, call it the kernel that everything starts from mostly, or a CPAC, or?
But most of our partners now are driven off of advisory councils, and then I guess the second biggest contributor would be a community council.
And the advisory councils are something that we are actively looking into, how to strengthen them, how to identify
Right.
places where
So
they are.
advisory council is what? What is that? Is that a park?
Association
advisory
of
council?
parks,
Okay.
yeah. But I love your idea about just reaching out to the community, just making sure, kind of like a shotgun approach, make sure that everybody knows that we're available, and then really cater to that. But Lou, your team is incredible. You do a phenomenal job leading your team. And this is just one aspect of the work that Lou does. He's also managing all of our maintenance aspects at our Riverfront and downtown parks. So Lou, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Lou.
You bet.
Okay, Kara, we're going to move, as we said, let's move staff comments up. I see Rocky present and accounted for.
Freshly shaved.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to say, how great we are to have Lou and his staff and what they do. So many times when we're talking to communities, they get sort of a kernel, an idea for an event or something they want to do, we can immediately hook them up with Lou, who can provide them information about how to obtain a permit. You know, if they want to have beer there, what does that process look like? If they're interested in having food vendors, he's got a list that he can help recommend. So kind of whatever that gap is that they need to get their, you know, kernel into a popped piece of popcorn, they can help provide that. And that's something we've been very intentional about over the last 2 or 3 years, is trying to change our posture and be more open facing towards encouraging and supporting these kind of events. And I did want to say, we've had discussions with the Parks Foundation, and we're actually putting together a survey that we want to roll out to the communities to get at some of exactly what you all were just discussing. What other ways can we be supportive, and can we serve some of the communities that maybe we're not doing as great a job at serving or are underutilized? And so we plan to incorporate this. If we do that, and I forgive me, please, Foundation, if you're watching, I can't remember, they have a partner they're working with on that survey. We plan to work with them as well, and we'll be putting that together. In terms of getting through the staff comments, Mary's going to help. We have a couple of visual aids, but as you all know, we've been very busy. Things are still, just as quickly as everything shut down, things are opening back up. And so we've been on the move. As you probably know, on June 5th, we were thrilled to officially open up the Kyle Plush Pavilion at Stanberry Park. And I believe Mary's got a picture of that to show. It was a really nice day. They had a huge crowd there. It was the Stanberry Park Advisory Council, the Parks Foundation, Representative Brinkman was there. Kara and President Getz were also on hand. Lou also supports the logistics for many of these types of events that we do, he and his team. So that was a lot of fun. Wanted to mention that and show you this picture. It was a great day. We also, I think in Lou's presentation, you saw a picture of the trebuchet that they use for the pumpkin chuck each year. So we got to see that too. Then on Monday of this week, we kicked off and opened up our new section of the park next to the Icon Music Center. The mayor was on hand, the county commissioners were there, the Parks Foundation, the folks from the state, and officially opened the newest section of the John G. and Phyllis W. Smale Riverfront Park. The Banks Partnership helped as well. So we kicked that off. Here's an image from that day. Everybody getting their exercise in on the scissors. And then just keep in mind, it's still to come on that. We've got Tom Jones Commons is happening July 23rd at 10 a.m. You've been invited. June 27th, we've got the Marion Spencer statue dedication with the Women's City Club, who's putting together a really nice event there. I believe the mayor will be on hand for that also. That is at 5 p.m. It's a Sunday. You've also been invited to that. And then August 12th at 3 p.m., we're looking to do the Inwood Playground dedication with the foundation and especially our friends at and donors at PNC. As I understand it, they're going to be doing a community cookout in conjunction with that event. So that should be a lot of fun. If you haven't seen, I drove past it the other day. The playground is just phenomenal. It's amazing there. And we can't wait to officially cut the ribbon on that. Moving along, you probably saw when you sat down, we've got some volunteer swag. We wanted to show you some of the new materials that we've recently gotten in that we want to use to incentivize longer term and repeat volunteers. I know this is something we've been working on for a while now, just trying to, as an extra way to say thank you and encourage people to participate. We got the final numbers in on the Mayor's Corporate Challenge. I mentioned all the organizations last month, but we had 19 different organizations participate. We had 326 volunteers at 19 project sites, totaling 1,304 hours. And so since and this is just some numbers for you that we use to share, the program, since we've been getting the wheels turning, coming out of the pandemic, we're off to a great start. I know we talked about this a month or two ago with Crystal here, but already from March through May of this year, we've had 87 volunteer projects generating 4,600 volunteer hours. So Crystal and the team, and when we say Crystal, you know, she heads up the volunteer side, but it also means there's a lot of support in terms of recruiting volunteers and for our operations folks to put these events together and make them happen. We're very appreciative of that. July is Parks and Recreation Month. This is something we participate in every year, try and draw a lot of attention to. The theme this year from NRPA is Our Parks and Recreation Story. So this is providing a great opportunity for us to engage with the community about the importance of our parks. You're seeing here the official logo that's coming down from NRPA. We've got a lot of things planned. Right now we're collecting video testimonials, asking people to tell their stories about their most notable or memorable experience in a park. These will be park users. These will be our staff. And we may be knocking on some of your doors as well to record some of these testimonials. As you can see on the screen, we're also asking the general public to provide their memorable or notable park stories to us through digital means. And we'll be giving out prizes to incentivize this participation. The stories that we use to feature on our social media feeds, they will receive prizes. And we're also looking to do some in-person events where we would use chalk on the ground. People could write down their stories there as well. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to be occurring all through the month of July and should be a lot of fun. A couple other things quickly here. We're glad to report that the administration building, which you are at, is officially reopening to the public on June 21st. As you know, it's becoming more and more accessible over the last few months, but we're going to sort of officially take the last pieces of tape off and reopen it. We'll have all the signage and updates on our websites, et cetera there. We don't get a ton of foot traffic there, but we do get some. I'm really happy to say that during the pandemic, any type of transaction that we needed to do, like a metal detector permit or a shelter reservation or a refund, we were able to do all of that electronically. And so that's going to be a lasting positive for us because it's going to be enhanced customer service where people are using digital means instead of having to come in and do it themselves. But they'll still, of course, have the option to if they like. In terms of seasonal staff, I know we talked about this a little bit last month. Wanted to let you know that we've onboarded over 60 seasonal staff already, much higher number than we had last month to help supplement our efforts this summer. That's absolutely critical for us to keep up with all the maintenance that happens. And of this, many of them are through our youth employment program, which is a great new program. It's a program we've had, but a program that's been re-envisioned and redesigned by Crystal Courtney and her team, where we're partnering with Project Groundwork Ohio River Valley. And we're calling it the Green Team. And so through this, kids ages 14 to 19 get to work, right alongside our staff, learning about green projects. It's a wonderful program. And in fact, I think either next month or soon, we're going to give you a more detailed presentation about why this is so innovative and why we're so excited about it this year. Project Green Team is something you're going to be hearing a lot about. And the leaders at Tanner and the leaders at Project Groundwork are just phenomenal. And we're really, really proud of this effort. And we're excited to tell you more about it in a coming meeting. And then finally, last but never least, I'm going to ask my friend Jen Spicer to jump in. And she wants to tell you about a really exciting and timely partnership that we're participating in with P&G and Pampers just in time for Father's Day. And so with that, I'll let Jen tell you about that.
Thanks, Rocky. Good morning. It's good to see all of you. So this is just a brief update in celebration of Father's Day. We have such good news. Last year, the Women's Fund of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation worked with the City of Cincinnati for legislation passed to make diaper changing stations available to all caregivers, regardless of gender. So they are donating P&G Pampers through the Women's Fund of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, 27 changing tables that will go into male comfort stations. That's right, Steve, I said comfort stations. This will be a total of 27. It's a value of about $6,000, and they should be installed by your team within the next month or so. So we're just excited. We're going to join Rocky's team on Sunday and make a big deal about it through social media. So thank you.
And thank you, Jen. It really is a great partnership, and we're excited about it. So that concludes what I have prepared, and I'm happy if there are any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Rocky?
Just a quick one. Maybe it's for Jen. I think that's a wonderful idea. The changing stations for fathers, because it's not fair that mothers get to do the job just because there aren't facilities available for the dad. So equal opportunity, I like that. Is there any way of identifying them? Like online? Certainly there will be signage on the various conference stations, but is there any like a map available? Will be a map available somewhere so you know, like you can plan ahead?
I can answer that, Jen. Feel free to jump in if you need to. But so we have not yet determined the specific locations that we're going to place these. We're going to be looking at the highest traffic, the highest need. And then I think the opportunities are endless in terms of our websites and social media to make these announcements to make sure that people are informed that they're there and have a tool to go reference where that is. So as soon as those decisions have been made on where they will be placed, because we do not have enough to put in every restroom. So we will select the highest priorities and make sure that the public knows very clearly where these are available.
That's really good.
Great. Anything else for Rocky? Thank you, Rocky.
Thanks. Thank you.
Appreciate the update. It's 10 o'clock. Do we need a break or want to keep going?
Whenever you take, I'll take one too. 10:30 will work for me.
Okay, let's move then. The next agenda item, we're going to move to the deer management plan. So Kara.
Yeah, thank you very much. Today we have a plan proposal to put in front of you. Crystal Courtney will be taking us through that proposal, but in summary, what it is we are presenting you today with an opportunity to approve a 5-year plan for our deer management program. This previously has been brought to you on an annual basis. But due to some of the kind of static features that we are presenting here that would remain unchanged for several years, we are then looking towards, again, requesting a 5-year approval. So Crystal will be here today, and Crystal, if you'd like to introduce Garrett and Crystal, please let us know what this plan entails.
Hey, thank you. So I have my amazing colleague, Garrett, here with us. He is our new land manager for parks, so filling the big shoes of Jim Godby, who was here for 30 years. So Garrett and I have been working on this plan for the last couple of months. As kind of the next generation of parks, we are inheriting this program that's been around for over a decade. So one of the key aspects of putting together a plan itself was so that we can pull all the documents that were in Dave Gamsetter's files and Jim's files and communicated with ODNR into one comprehensive document that is basically our handbook moving forward. I think one of the greatest importances of having a 5-year plan is that we can actually set up research methodology to determine the success of the program over time. There's been a lot of research that's been done, but it's been very kind of shotgun approach, just to see how the forest ecology is balancing with regards to deer management overall. So we have developed a partnership with UC Biology Department and are working directly with 2 professors that are helping us kind of build out what that research methodology should be in order to determine the success of the program based on, kind of national standards for how you analyze the forest and the success of a wildlife management program. So what we put in front of you is a very hefty document. I think we had a plan for years. I think it was 6 pages when we first got it. And so what I found in my 2 years with the parks is that we have the same questions over and over again. We basically direct people to a part of our website that's kind of hard to find, that will tell you more information about kind of all the questions and answers for asked questions. So beyond having kind of our own handbook to guide us and to guide the program, the intention was to create a very front-facing document that will allow people who are very interested in the depth of the program to really dig in. So why did we do it this way and not this way? Where do you hunt? How many acres is it? How many hunters are there? How are coordinators chosen? All of those aspects are what we're trying to capture in this one document. And again, to have that document for 5 years will give us, the ability to have analytics from year to year, methodology from year to year, same program from year to year to actually be able to compare apples to apples. So that's the gist of it. So aside from that, we come to you every year, and generally we're bringing forward comments that we've received from the public or from our volunteers to just suggestions for how to improve the program. So every year we're coming with, we want to add this, we want to add that. Last year we opened up the entire trail system. Well, I'd say 90% of the trail system within the hunting zones. Raving success. We had fewer complaints last year of the program than I'd say ever before. The only real complaints that we got last year was the confusion around the trails that we did keep closed, which there's a small area in Mount Airy that's very active for hikers. We also closed the trails within the hunting zones of Alt and Alms. So this year we're proposing to just open up all the trails without any concerns that we've had from evidence from the past year. In addition to that, we're also looking to add Caldwell Nature Preserve and Lagoyo Nature Preserve. These are 2 areas that they have a nature center associated with them, and the parcel itself is just largely forested. Caldwell is one of our old growth forests in the park system. We do manage at Seymour, which is pretty close, but we really want to kind of hone in on these our nature preserves, especially as we move forward with our invasive species plant removal. Research has shown that if you really want to see a forest come back to life, removing invasive species isn't necessarily the first step. The first step is going to be to manage the deer population, because if you remove all the honeysuckle, you're basically opening up a buffet for the deer population to come in and just mow down. So I think the first step is putting pressure on the overabundance of deer in our city and in that park, and then doing a comprehensive invasive species removal project. So with that being said, open it up to any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions for improvement.
So what are the primary input or comments that you hear from the community on our plan?
On historical management of the program. I'd say for the most part, in my experience and what I've heard anecdotally from Jim Godby, is largely just around, the idea that we're turning our parks over to hunters for half the year, that people are barred from access to these areas. And after analyzing the program, in partnership with Jim, who started it, and speaking to our hunters, we were informed very frequently that people are hiking either way. We did an analysis of how the state manages their properties where they have hunting zones, and even looking nationally, and trails remain open. So that was one of the big improvements that we made last year. Aside from that, it's just, the humanity of lethal culling of the deer population. Again, we take this very serious. We're natural resource managers. We understand the importance of deer in our ecosystem, but we also understand how ecosystems function. And that, in a perfect world, a deer would have a predator that would be managing it. In our very, urban area, there are no predators. And even in Cincinnati, you can't even hunt on your own property. You have to be in this program in order to even discharge a bow for the management of the population. So while we definitely hear and take all those concerns, very serious and respond to them in a very respectful way, and always check with our Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Division of Wildlife, to kind of guide our actions. We found that the way that we're doing it is best practice, and we communicate that in a way and manage the program in a way that, we try to strike a balance between those who see that this is an inhumane way of managing the population. But prior to this, and again, anecdotal, based on hunter feedback, is that, the herd was thinner physically. So we're seeing bigger deer, the honeysuckle population is booming, where back in the day, whenever the program first started, you could look through the forest because they browsed as high as they could go. And again, just anecdotally, I would say just first year of research, a partnership with UC just started last year. They did find that, our wildflower populations in the areas that they were looking at are starting to come back compared to what they're seeing in exposure. So I think as the years go by, it's so important to have the data to back up what we're doing. I think that to me was the biggest missing piece. I mean, when you speak to ODNR, they'll tell you that they use Cincinnati's program as an example for other communities that are just looking to get started. But for us, we want to be top notch. We want to know that what we're doing is working. We want to know that if it's not working, how we can improve it. So that to me is where the rubber really hits the road in partnership with our universities around us to help guide best practices on what data we should be collecting in order to really tell if we're being successful.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
I have a question.
Linda?
Thank you. This was very interesting reading. A lot of information here. And the first question I had as I was reading it is, who's the audience? Who's this written for? Is it just us? Is it hunters? Who is it exactly?
For me, it's everyone. It's anyone who wants to dive deeper, right? So this is for other communities that are looking to start a program. This is for our community to understand how the program runs. This is for our commissioners to understand the depth and the nuance of every aspect of the program so that you can speak to it in the community. It's for our staff to understand exactly where we're hunting, why we're hunting, all those aspects.
Okay.
I think beyond that, and again, this is a very hefty job, but we wanted to have something that captured it all. Beyond that, my vision is to work with our CDB team to really build out the webpage as we continue to redevelop the website and really do more, just front-facing layman education about why deer are managed, how we manage them. Very simple, lots of infographics to really kind of show what the program is. But if someone wanted to dive deeper, this is how they would do it.
Yeah. And I think there's a real big opportunity to dive deep here. So that's really good. And what you've said is that we've got state of the art in terms of programming around deer management. Other communities, other places are looking to Cincinnati for how we're doing it and reapplying it potentially. So I think this document should absolutely reflect that. And in my editorial reading of it, I said, oh yeah, this is a draft. Because there are some things in here that I think could be polished so that it could be stellar. Because I think everything is here. It's just a matter of getting it to the place where it really matches the program that you have. The other thing that I think might be important to do is, what is the executive summary, if you will, of this? Because not everybody is going to want to deep dive, but there are people who are going to want to know the overview. So would there be a summary, if you will, that's available? So I get it. I get the essence of it without having to read the entire document. So that's a suggestion if that's a possibility. And the other thing I would suggest is that, because you all are so close to this, you know what you intend to say. So if there are others like me, or hunters probably would be a better audience, to have them read it, to make sure that it makes sense, and you've captured all of the pieces. And last point, as I was reading this, I was thinking, this is great. It tells you all about how we're going about it. And what I was trying to do is look at it on the other side. In the unfortunate event that something happens, how would I look at this? Is there anything in here that I look at and say, that was not clear enough? That was so vague, and therefore that's why we ended up in that place. So reading it from that critical place, this is the, I won't say defense, but this really does address those unfortunate eventualities. If you can look at it from that place, I think that would be helpful. And I said that was the last point, but it really wasn't. It must be because I lost, I always do this. It always comes back. So I'll come back to it. Yeah. I should say, this is the last point, but there is another point, and I'm sure it'll come back because I think it was important. It felt important in my brain anyway. So I'll come back to it. But thank you. I think this was good reading for me. So thank you.
And this is something that I really hope to incorporate throughout our program, for forestry, for conservation and management, for all of our, and we're really doing that system-wide. Is, we have had a lot of turnover, a lot of new faces. So creating kind of a handbook of our standard operating procedure is top importance.
Yes.
So both Jenny and I are working closely together on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, as well, we, in terms, I think those are great comments, Commissioner Thomas, and in conjunction with this program every year, this is sort of like the nuts and bolts of the program, the full blown, document, but we do an outreach campaign separate that starts a little bit closer to when hunting season begins, where we not only tell people about trail closures, et cetera, but we try and, explain the program. I mean, I always tell people, when I first got here and heard about this, I had no idea this even existed or this was taking place in our parks. And I think that a lot of people that first encounter this have that same feeling. And so a big part of what we're trying to do, we've gotten a little bit better and better each year, is to get more into the educational component and try and boiling it down in a way that'll make sense to everybody, whether you're, an experienced, educated naturalist or just a resident of the city trying to understand it. So we will be using all the means we have available to try and provide that education and give advance notice. And I think like I say, we've gotten a little bit better at it each year, and we're always looking for creative ways to do that. And we'll be doing that this year, certainly. It usually starts around, mid to late August.
Great.
That's a great point, Rocky. And I would encourage you, I think what Commissioner Thomas has asked for as far as an executive summary might be a good document that you could ensure that is distributed to all the community councils, so that it's a concise thing that they will know about this, they've been notified, and give them an opportunity, as you said, to be aware of what we're doing.
I have a couple questions.
Sure, Commissioner Thomas. I'm sorry, Molly.
That's okay. Okay, so I might ask some odd questions, but they are real questions that I have some curiosity about. So, we hear coyotes these days, and you mentioned that in a normal environment, these deer would have a natural predator. Are we seeing increases in coyote population, and is that impacting the deer population? I have a couple more questions. I'll turn it over. So that's one.
Excuse me, Molly, I couldn't hear you.
Okay, I don't know where the microphone is, so I'm not sure what to speak toward. Can you hear me okay now, Susie?
Where is the microphone for this?
Is
Oh,
that-
for this, okay. Phone.
Oh, it's on the phone.
Move it over for a minute.
Yeah.
Pass the mic.
Still working on technology.
Can you hear me better now, Susie? So my question was.
Thank you.
Has the coyote population increased, and is that having an impact on the deer population? And then, I share the concern that you raised earlier about trail closures. It's unusual when you go and see a sign that says there's hunting, you think, am I going to be shot with a bow? Of course. So it creates a real safety concern, and it's months, it's months. I have never encountered a bow hunter in all my years hiking the trails. I hope I never do. I think if I do, I'll be frightened. I do. So it is just, I do have some continued concerns about that, which isn't to say I think we should close trails for 5 months of the year to allow for this either. So I think it's a challenge we have to get through. My big question is, like, what is working with this program and what is not working? And what is not working, do we have a legitimate plan to get it to work? Meaning, are these target levels of deer populations in this appendices, how do we develop those? And if we stand by those deer populations as being the right ones, or the target populations as being the right ones, how do we get to them? Because these are startling. It would tell me that our program isn't working because we're not getting closer to target deer populations. And in some cases, if I'm reading this correctly, we have in Stanberry Park, or wait, which one of these parks did I just look at? 6,700 deer in a 30-acre park. Is that possible?
So the way that the deer, how I think of it is, so the state sets the kind of standard.
Glenway Woods is the one I saw, it was a big number.
So the way that I see it, in my mind of success, how is this program successful and what do we need to do to improve it? The deers, the ODNR sets the standard of recommendation that 20 deer per square mile will equate to the minimum amount of damage done to the ecosystem. And here, correct me if I'm misspeaking in any way. And so some of the areas that we are, most of the parks that we're managing aren't a square mile. So then there's a multiplier there that then says, based on the infrared survey, which is a snapshot in time, this is how many deer we saw within this boundary. And so then you multiply that out by the square mile, and that's what gets you, this is how many deer you would potentially have per square mile. So that to me is just a snapshot, right? It's one day, one flyover, one person's, infrared survey at that point. Where the real rubber hits the road as far as success is the botanical analysis that would take place on the ground in partnership with UC to see whether or not our forests are regenerating and how our wildflower population is being impacted. So those are the two indicators that the industry has set up to really show that if your program's objective is to create an ecological balance between the overabundance of deer and the ecological long-term success of the ecology of your forest, then what you should be analyzing isn't necessarily the number of deer per square mile, but whether or not the ecological balance is actually there and is it becoming, is it improving over time. Again, because we haven't had static research methods that are conducted year to year, all of our evidence as far as forest regeneration and the success of the program is anecdotal. It's based on feedback from hunters, feedback from folks like yourself who have hiked the areas over the years, feedback from other park patrons who are just seeing a change in even the honeysuckle density. So that's really the objective. That to me is the greatest improvement that we must make in order to really be able to say that this program is working, and from there really be able to say what else we need to do. So another anecdotal feedback that we've gotten from the hunters, and this is kind of a complaint of theirs, is that they're not seeing the deer population in the parks like they were. So while the population numbers themselves may not be decreasing, whenever the program first started, it was like, forgive me for saying, but like shooting fish in a barrel. They had a sharpshooter program. They called, the numbers are in here, upwards of 100, 200 deer out of mountain area. In 1 year, just riding through the park because the deer had no fear whatsoever. And now they hear a twig snap and they're moving, because there is that pressure there. There is, every year a hunter is there, deer are being called, so they're no longer, it's no longer a petting zoo anymore. So while I don't believe we will be having a massive impact on the deer population citywide. We only are managing a portion of the 10% of the city that is actually here. What we are changing is the behavioral characteristics of the population within these nature reserves. And in my mind, and even speaking to Garrett and doing all this research, this is a program that you would have to do it every year. You don't just get to a point and stop. You know, it's the same with managing honeysuckle or invasive species. You're really only improving that spot, that area for a snapshot in time. And if you don't continue the pressure, if you don't continue the management status, then in 10 years, 15 years, you'll be right back where you started.
And if I may jump into,
Get to the coyotes.
yeah, we'll definitely get to the coyotes. The current research as far as how long the program may take to really be effective, is about 25 to 30 years. Is the best recommendation. So this is a long-term program before we'll really start to see some success.
Crystal,
Anecdotal evidence. I'm sorry, was there-
Go ahead. Just 1 second.
She might not be able to make
Just
it.
1 second, Sue. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
I assume you want us to move the mic.
yeah, thank you. That's one thing, but I'd also like to ask a question of Crystal.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Crystal, we either do it this way with bow hunting, or because Ohio has not okayed any other method of contraception, it's either this way or no way. Is that correct?
That is my understanding of the situation at this time. Yes, the ODNR is not approving contraception as an option for deer management. Right now, we do have a sterilization program in Clifton, and that is a research project that's approved under permit by ODNR. So from my understanding of the way that this works throughout the state, this is the only approved management style that we have an option for.
And if I may jump in as well, nationally, there are no contraceptives that are allowable for free-ranging deer herds. You may apply contraceptives to deers that are in enclosed spaces, but because of potential risks of human consumption or non-target species, that permit has not been extended beyond that. So it would not even be an option for us at the national level, to the best of my understanding.
And do the data say that that approach is less effective also?
It is less effective, yes.
My understanding is there's been a lot of research done, and it may be somewhat effective in contained areas like islands and where there are extreme natural boundaries like that. But to Garrett's point, the FDA has approved limited use, I'm sorry, it was the EPA, limited use of some PZP, is that what it is? Yeah. But in the state of Ohio, they have not licensed that here or labeled it here in the state of Ohio. So it is, even though it's on a national basis, it could be used. It's then dependent upon each individual state if they're going to allow it. And it's not allowed in Ohio. But having said that, I'd like to go back to Garrett. We were sort of interrupted there for a moment, but you're about to lead to coyotes, I believe.
Yeah, we can definitely discuss the coyotes. To my knowledge, I am not aware of any research studies within Cincinnati limits. I can speak to coyotes in general that they do very well in disturbed habitats. They coexist with humans fairly well. Chicago has a very long-term study looking at urban coyote populations, and there are anecdotal evidence that can even use traffic signals. I mean, they are very well adapted to the urban environment at this point. Some of the research that was mentioned in the report does show that coyotes have a significant impact on managing fawn population or young deer population.
Crystal?
Just one
No, no.
second. Just 1 second.
They're less successful as far as being able to hunt larger deer or adult deer, but they do play an important role in slowing the population growth. Maybe not controlling it outright, but to our ability to manage deer populations within the city limits.
Thank you.
Commissioner Castellini?
Okay. So, Crystal, that group from Clifton that was raising $40,000 a year in order to hire veterinarians to do hysterectomies on deer, is that program still going forward, and what do you hear from them?
Yeah, so they were just approved for another 3-year permit through the Division of Wildlife, through DNR. They have an excellent research partner in White Buffalo that is actively determining what the population statistics are and seeing decline in the population over time. So, and this is one of, I want to say 5 cities across the nation that are part of this study. So we work very closely with them. They kind of run their own program in partnership with White Buffalo. They give us a report every year. They let us know every time that they're going out to DART, and they report back on what the population is looking like. So they're a great partner for, and it's in an area that would be really hard for us to do a bowhunting program. It's such.
Did you say they're darting? My understanding were they were doing hysterectomies.
Well, Susie, they first dart the deer and then are able to then take them into a facility to do the hysterectomy.
Gotcha, gotcha.
And if you missed it, the ODNR just extended that research program for the Clifton Deer program for another 3 years, effective in January of this year or February of this year.
And they are still raising the money all on their own to effect this, correct? We're not paying for it.
We are not paying for it, and they've actually done a pretty phenomenal job of developing volunteers that are certified to administer the anesthesia. And then they have a partnership with UCAN veterinary clinic in.
It's in. It's not Cumminsville. What is it?
Fairmont.
That's where mom and them are. So yeah.
So the partnership with UCAN and veterinarians there have been trained to do the sterilization. So it's effectively lowered the cost of the program overall. So they're really a national model for how to do sterilization right.
Thank you.
And to be fair, that project is still experimental. We are still waiting to see whether or not it is effective in the long run at managing those deer populations at a level that will not result in damaging the ecology of our parks in that area. But they have been a phenomenal partner, and I will not speak highly enough.
Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to suggest that when we get to the point of voting on the approval of this plan, that we also consider asking Crystal to arrive with some statistics on this annually so that we can measure the performance of the plan. And to the extent you're gaining new information from your partnership with UC on the ecological habitat, that we've got the benefit of that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was the comment that I was forgetting.
You knew it would come back.
I knew it would come back. And because I think a 5-year plan is a good idea because it gives you, you can have a baseline and then you can have multiple years to look at the data and see how you're doing. And I think it's important that we review it annually so we can see how we're doing. I also thought that it would be important for us to do this annually because last year we changed our approach in terms of trail closures. And so because we did that and it's looked great so far, I think we just need to make sure we are paying attention to it. And that is moving in the direction that we want it to. So 5 years, great. Annual review, I think is warranted.
Absolutely.
A couple of questions I had. Safety, can you talk about our record? To Commissioner North's comments, some people walking into a trail, and now that we've opened the trail may find it unsafe. What has been our safety record with this program of bow hunting?
Well, I'll just start with what we do on the front end, as Rocky spoke to. Last year, before this program started, before the season started, we spent a whole month on community outreach and just educating people about how to proceed with caution in a hunting zone. Overall, safety record is nearly 100%. The only incident that we've had was a person experiencing homelessness had climbed into a deer stand and had been consuming alcoholic beverages and fell out of the stand. And so to that regard, you can't protect against everything. Our hunters are required to take down their stands whenever they're not in session. They're only allowed to have them up whenever they are on site and in session. So As far as the hiking aspect goes, I think we do a really good job in partnership with Rocky's team to get the word out beforehand. We've also developed signage at every trailhead, at every intersection to at least let people know that they are entering a wildlife management zone. And then beyond that, continuing to communicate, if someone doesn't want to be in that area, we have miles of trail outside of these zones, and it really kind of push folks to experience other parts of the park if they haven't, you know, if they have a favorite place that they go to in that area and it's a hunting zone and they don't want to be in it. You know, we have Parker's Woods and we have Buttercup Valley and other trail systems throughout the parks that folks can go and experience without any concern.
And from a practical aspect, as far as the logistics of the hunting, generally the shots are taken at distances of about 15 yards. We strongly discourage anything over that because the shots are in place. You cannot guarantee a humane outcome. So really 15 yards is the distance that we're asking our hunters to really focus on when they're making their shot. And at that distance, you know, knowing what you're aiming at is fairly easy. And it's,
So you're not going to confuse a human with a deer at 15 yards.
You will not.
Along that line, you mentioned your recommendations, your guidelines, the rules that we see in here. If a hunter does not abide by these rules, what is the recourse?
They're banned from the program.
They are removed from our program, and if they are also in Great Parks, Hamilton County, they may be banned from their program as well in the past.
Okay.
So.
Is that captured in the plan? Numbers?
I didn't see that.
It's captured that they are removed from our plan, yes.
Yeah, I
Okay.
saw that.
Question I have is, you've referenced ODNR kind of as the pinnacle, if you will, or the experts. How does ODNR compare to other DNRs in other states? I mean, is there consistency from state to state as far as best practices? And oh, by the way, I'm thrilled that you're actually using science and, you know, consistent tracking of the effect of culling. And for those that don't know, typically after the first year, a deer will have twins or triplets, correct? You know, so you got to kill a lot of deer to even stay even with a course. But I'm curious of, is there consistency across the country as far as best practices?
So from what I've seen, the best practices are based on best available research, and that is consistent across nationally. What may differ is that the management targets may be more or less.
Okay.
For instance, I believe Wisconsin recommends 10 deer per square mile because their environments are, my understanding, more sensitive to the impacts of browsing. So those targets may change based upon where you are in the country, but the science that's behind setting those targets is solid, and that is consistent.
And from what I've seen, kind of like how we look to other municipalities and work closely with them to make sure that our regulations are consistent. That's happening at the state level as well. So they're looking to, you know, Pennsylvania and other areas that have the same type of ecology, same type of forest, same type of pressure to compare notes. So from what I've seen, our ODNR is on point with surrounding states.
And I guess the other point that I would have, if there's new developments that come between now and that 5-year term,
Yes.
Safe to say that you guys would adopt those into the plan, and this isn't just fixed for 5 years and we're going to not, you know, amend or adjust it. If there is best practice change, that we would incorporate that.
Absolutely, yeah. And those would be the things that we would bring to you in the annual report as well, so if there was any major improvements that we saw we needed to make. But really, I think the most consistent piece that we want to have in place is the research methodology. How do we measure success?
I did want to take an opportunity to say that we are aware, and we've all been informed, there is a very passionate group of citizens who are advocating that bow hunting is not a humane approach to deer management. And I think I just want to make sure that we go on record to say that we respect those opinions, we respect those views, and we actually applaud the passion that they have for those. I think from from my perspective, I appreciate the data approach that you're going to be taking and the approach that we have as far as support for why we do this. Why are we doing it, number one? Why is there a need to do this, number one? And then number two, the approach that we take, I think documenting this and following best practices is what we should be looking at, and I applaud you for that. And I do want to reemphasize that this is the approach for contraception is something that is continued to be looked at on a national basis, and it is something that even as of late 2019, we had specific guidance and specific input from ODNR that this is not something that they are interested in approving any administrative contraceptive chemicals for free-ranging animals. So it's not just that the Cincinnati Park Board is saying we don't want to look at that program. We continue to listen to all input, but it's something that we rely on you as our professionals, as well as ODNR and the professionals there to sort of lead us into what is best practices and what is the most effective way of treating a deer population in an urban setting. So I just want to make sure we acknowledge that and say that publicly. Any other input or questions? So I would like to entertain a motion then that we approve the 5-year program with the caveat that we would request on an annual basis that we do a review, that this be on an agenda item for a meeting that we have in the springtime, or at least before the program, the bow hunting season, that we could review it. Is there any other things? So moved by Commissioner North. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Lindner. And so with that, if there's no other discussion on go ahead.
Question.
Yep.
I am fully in support of the program. I think there are some additional parts that we've discussed that need to be a part of it as we move forward. And you've talked about some of them, the executive summary, if you will, whatever the right title for that is, and the additional points around what happens if a participant violates the conditions of participation, making sure that's spelled out, and then all of the other, what I call cosmetic cleanups, be addressed.
Any other comments? We have a motion on the floor. Would you please call the roll?
President Getz,
Yes.
Vice President Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindner,
Yes.
Commissioner North,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Good work.
So now, Mr.
Very good.
President. may I-
Now, we will take a 3-minute break here and come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
3 minutes.
4 minutes? 5 minutes?
Well, there just might be a line.
Ah.
So. That's the only thing.
We're on a pause.
Yeah, we're just a pause.
Yes.
Grab another phone for a mobile.
There you go.
I don't know where the Wi-Fi is here, unless you have a Wi-Fi password. Amy can
Yes.
have it. Okay. Yes. It's much work
Yeah, I don't
between
hear
the
about
cell
that.
phone and work
Oh,
service
okay.
road.
Do you-
Yeah, so we've got
Just a second,
Greg with
just a second,
us.
just a second. So are we back live?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're going to take up next two action items that we need, numerals, letters C and D on the easement and the foundation grant. So, Kara?
Yeah.
So the easement, do we have, Steve, do we have Cindy with us today?
Yes,
I'm
Hi,
here.
Cindy.
Good morning.
Good morning, Cindy. Can you walk us through the easement for Eden Park?
Yes, this is a very, very simple one. There is an existing cell tower that is adjacent to Playhouse in the park. And because of the construction that they're doing, the addition they're putting on, the electric currently is being routed from Playhouse to the cell tower. So because of the construction, that electric panel is going away. So we needed to find another source for the electric. So I think there's a drawing attached to the second page of the board report that shows the pathway. It's going to be underground, and it goes from an existing pole kind of near Season Good Pavilion, and it's going to go underground to the existing cell tower. So all they need from us is an easement. The pathway, it's about a 10-foot wide pathway along that red dashed line that's shown on that drawing.
Do we have any questions for Cindy on this? If not, can we have a motion, please?
Move to accept the recommendation.
Is there a second?
A second.
We have a motion and second to accept the recommendation of staff to approve the easement. Is there any other questions? Can we have roll call vote?
President Getz?
Yes?
Vice President Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini?
Yes.
Commissioner Linder?
Yes.
Commissioner Norton?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Cindy, while you're there, I had a quick question. The CRC board took up a discussion on an easement Cincinnati Bell was looking for at Avon Woods related to Paddock Road. Is that something have we done that yet or not?
Yeah, that's an easement that we're working on right now. A coordinated report is being circulated to all of the different departments to make sure that nobody else has any issues with it, and that's probably why the CRC board was discussing it. So
Okay,
once
that is yet to come before us.
yes,
That's
right.
perfect. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Foundation.
Foundation grant?
Yeah.
Karen?
That will be Mr. Sherman this evening, afternoon. Is it afternoon?
Not yet.
Morning.
Yes,
It's still
it just
morning.
seems
Oh my
like-
gosh. Sorry, I jumped ahead there.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
This is a grant application acceptance from the Parks Foundation. In 2020, we had an in-kind contribution from the Parks Foundation for trees at Laurel Park. And this is to support the maintenance and watering of those trees that were donated and planted by volunteers. So staff requested that the board approve the application acceptance of the funds from Cincinnati Parks Foundation in the amount of $7,000.
Is there anyone on the board that would object to us accepting funds or any comments or questions? Can we have a motion to such?
Motion to accept.
Commissioner Thomas moved to accept the recommendation of acceptance. Second? Second by Commissioner North. Any other discussion?
Just a question. What methodology are they using to water? Is this just with like a water truck that they show up periodically, or?
Unfortunately, I do not know the answer to that question. Is it the bags that they're doing? I am so sorry that the right people are not in the room to answer this question. The bags is the method that we use in other locations, so my presumption would be that that's what
And
it
they
is.
just go periodically and fill
Yes.
those up, and then it's,
Yes.
They do bring a lot of
but they bring a water truck to fill that.
I'm so sorry we don't have the right staff to answer that definitively.
I was just curious what $7,000 will get you on a
How much
watering
water?
program. You know, how many visits that is.
It's
Okay.
intended to take care of the trees at least this summer. Help them in their young growth.
Excellent. Well, we have a motion. Can we have a roll call, please?
President Guest?
Yes.
Vice President Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini?
Yes,
Commissioner Linder?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Can we confirm if our council and professionals are online?
We do have one other agenda item that would only take a couple of minutes, and that would be the presentation of the capital projects highlights from Mr. Sheckman.
Let's take the highlights of the playgrounds.
Okay, great. We've got some images to share with you quickly. Mary's going to bring them up. And these are our 3 newest playgrounds. I believe we're starting with Mount Echo, then Burnett Woods, and then the new playground at Inwood. And as Mary's bringing those up, this isn't just about replacing aging play equipment, but because of changes in the industry, there's much more play value with a lot of equipment we can purchase. And so we've increased the play value with our newest playgrounds, and particularly we've increased accessibility. And that's accessibility not just for children with physical disabilities, but with cognitive and emotional disabilities as well. So Mount Echo, the playground went back where a playground used to be. This is the entrance, and you see that circular piece right at the front. That is a spinner that accommodates several kids at once. It also accommodates a wheelchair. Next slide. And climbing equipment, climbing nets are kind of all the rage now. And all this, generally it's designed for children from 5 to 12 years old. And really kids can play on any piece of equipment that they want to have challenges. Each piece is separately posted. Actually, some are for 2 to 5 year olds and others for 5 to 12 year olds. Next slide. And these colorful play panels are an attractive feature. We can go back again real quick, Mary. And it's one of the places that we're designed into playgrounds when kids can get away from it all, particularly kids who are on the autism spectrum, to get into a smaller enclosed space. Next slide. And there's kind of a new version of a teeter-totter that holds lots of kids at once. And I think there may be a couple more. And a variety of swings. And the most of the surface here are engineered wood fiber. It looks like mulch, but they're specially engineered pieces to provide a safety surface. And for heavy use areas, like under the swings, we use heavy mats. Next slide. Now we move to Burnett Woods. Many of you may have seen this playground. And again, it replaced and actually enlarged a playground that used to be there near the Millionaires Clubs. This is the entrance to the playground. I'll kind of walk you through the playground quickly. Next. And this is a glider. Actually, there was somebody on it at the time when I took the picture. So again, it accommodates mobility devices, and accommodates a whole bunch of kids at the same time, or in this case, adults. Next slide. So it rocks back and forth. And another view of it, and the ramp, and an accessible picnic table, and there's some other picnic tables nearby. And then you're just going to walk around quickly the climbing pieces. Next slide. You can just run through these, Mary. The piece in use. Musical instruments, kids like to pound away on that. There was an existing stone wall here, and this shot is taken from the shelter, the Millionaires Club. So we didn't have to build in a lot of seating, and we used the natural topography and the existing seat wall we built. Next. And just some fun balance pieces. And a couple more slides, we'll move to the next park. It's a child deciding which one to jump on. This is a view from the shelter, looking toward the north. The disc swing we first put in Washington Park in 2010s proved to be very popular. It's kind of like a modern version of a tire swing that could hold a whole bunch of kids at once. One more. Yeah, and then a series of swings. A disc swing, swings for kids with disabilities, and tot swings. And then finally, our biggest playground to date and most accessible, and thanks to a large donation from PNC, $150,000. So it's open, a soft opening. The dedication is going to be in August. You see the butterfly, the musical instruments, the safety surface here is a turf-like product and a mound you see beyond that. Next slide. And we like to create some topography, hence the mound the kids roll down and climb down. And you see a series of swings beyond that and some more color panels. Next slide. Another spinner, we like those a lot, and 2 playhouses. We'll see some more pictures of those soon. So there's something for everybody, actually all the way to adult, as you'll see in a few moments here. Next slide. I should say, just a reminder, the playground was designed with a committee that had experts in childhood disabilities and the community representatives in the foundation. I love those gumdrop balancing pieces. One of the playhouses. Keep going. A few more slides. We saw those gumdrops and the little playhouses. You can see it casts color onto the surface when the sun goes through that skylight. Next. And these are again for like little kid playhouses. That's inside one of them. And again, where kids can get away from all the activity going on if it gets to be too much for them. Next slide. And this is a simple thing. We stole the idea from another playground out in Green Township. I've already seen kids and moms racing each other. They see a drag strip and they know what to do with it. Next couple slides. And again, our favorite disc swing, but you'll see, I think right after this is another slide. I want to point out some particular swings. Next, Mary. And the swings I'm going to point out, you can see them on the right, that they can accommodate a child and a parent on the same swing. There they are. So that's kind of fun. Or I guess 2 siblings or friends. Next. And then not just the climbing equipment, but a way to really get up high and get a view of the whole site. And this our tower kind of mimics the Christ Hospital tower in the distance, if you will. Next slide. And what's bound to be a major feature of the park, and you see one of its first users, our first zip line. And that's the presentation.
Steve, I think these have been incredible additions to the park system. Can you let us know what are the other parks that you're working on right now that are in sort of either on the drawing board or in progress?
Sure. So actually Rapid Run, a new playground is designed for Rapid Run. And I think the pieces have already been ordered, and that was previously approved. And then the next ones on the list to replace are McAvoy, Area 10, which is the Area 3 in Mount Airy, which is back where the disc golf course is, and that's a very old piece. Jackson Hill is a smaller playground that's scheduled to be replaced too. And then Hoffner Park is aged and it's going to need some too. So those are the ones we're probably looking at over the next 2 fiscal years.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Steve?
I just have one question.
Sure.
Hey, Steve, that artificial turf, how hot does it get in the sun?
It does heat up, and one of the warnings that we have in all playgrounds, but it applies to metal surfaces as well, is that it could be hot to the touch. It's not necessarily that much hotter than other play surfaces, but it certainly will heat up.
Okay, just so people are made aware of it.
Yeah, they're aware. And
Great.
the first time
Great.
they use it, they certainly know.
Thank you.
Find out quickly. Any other questions, comments? Go
I
ahead.
have
Linda.
one. Steve, the spinners that will accommodate wheelchairs, in one of the photographs, that's in the middle of artificial turf. So can a wheelchair roll easily on that surface?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, that's although the compressed engineered wood fiber is an approved accessible surface, the pourable or that turf-like surface is certainly a little easier for mobility devices. So when we put in spinners, we surround them with that turf, basically a rubberized surface. So yes.
Right.
designed for that.
And will there be notification on our website and in other places so parents can go and look for those parks that are accessible for children with disabilities?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. All our playgrounds are accessible, but frankly, some are more accessible than others and have more accessible, universally accessible features than others. So I think that's certainly something that we can look at and post.
Great.
I think that's a really great comment. I'm sure Rocky's wheels are already turning on ways that we can, create a specific element of our marketing operations to make sure that families who need those facilities and are looking for those facilities are aware.
Any other questions, comments for Steve?
Playgrounds are great.
The question I have for Steve is that man-made wood fiber, so is that wood or is it plastic?
It's wood. It's wood.
And how long does it hold up?
Well, it certainly deteriorates over time and needs to be replenished and turned over, and then new fill brought in. I'm not sure exactly what the life cycle is on it. So it's a much cheaper product than the rubberized safety surface, but it certainly does require more maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
So it's actually mulch that gets tumbled. So if you pick up a piece, it's very clean and it reduces the amount of splintering or such. It's a very clean product, but it does require annual maintenance, and maintenance includes either just raking it out to make sure the surface is level, or an annual addition of new, because it compresses, and in order to meet the safety surfacing requirements, it has to maintain a depth. So we have to add annually.
Great.
They look beautiful.
Super. So Steve, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, I'll be introducing a motion to go into executive session. For those of you participating on YouTube, I do anticipate following executive session, we will come back into public session, and I do anticipate further actions by the board, and we still have an agenda item or two related still on our agenda, so we will come back. I have no idea how long we'll be in executive session, but we will come back after that period of time. So with that, I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G, to consider the employment and discipline of a public employee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Thomas. Any questions? Can we have a roll call vote, please, Mary?
President Betts,
Yes.
Vice President Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Linder,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So with that,